Livermore has its share of famous and important people. Here's a snapshot of a few of them. First is Robert Livermore. Robert Livermore came from England to California. At that time, California belonged to Mexico, and Robert wanted to purchase some land. He was told that in order to buy land, he had to become a Mexican citizen, marry a Mexican woman, and become a Catholic. After he did all these things, he was given a land grant in 1839 by the Mexican government. His property was known as Rancho Las Positas. After the Mexican-American War of 1848, California land now belonged to the United States, but he finally got his property back. Sadly, Robert Livermore died before his land was returned to him, but it stayed in the family. William Mendenhall was actually the founder of the town of Livermore. He had heard that a transcontinental railroad was being built, and he knew if he could establish a depot in Livermore, this town would be a very important way to transport our cattle, grains, sheep, fruits, wine, and coal all over the country. So in 1869, he established a 100-acre town site, naming it after Robert Livermore, the original settler of the land. Mendenhall laid out all the streets with lots for businesses, schools, churches, hospitals, and homes. He donated 20 acres of land to the Central Pacific Railroad to make sure the Transcontinental Railroad would come through Livermore. This made Livermore a very important place. Here is Joaquin Murrieta. In the 1870s, Joaquin was known as a famous outlaw in California who robbed and murdered settlers and attacked wagon trains, as well as rustling cattle. Legend has it that he had a hideout in Livermore, maybe in the caves at Brushy Peak. We don't know for sure if there was really a man named Joaquin Murrieta or if he was made up. I'll let you decide. But it's said that he was killed by Captain Love, who was given a $1,000 reward, a great sum of money at the time. Jack London is a famous author who lived in Livermore in the 1880s when he was a boy. His family owned a truck farm, and Jack had to work the farm with his father, as well as attending Fifth Street School. He hated the farm and said it was dirty and smelly work. When he grew up, he became a very popular author. He wrote about the Klondike, which is part of Alaska. His most famous books are Call of the Wild and White Fang, both about brave dogs. Jack London Boulevard is named after him, and several streets in Livermore are named after his books. Maybe you've seen the new movie, Call of the Wild. It's about one of Jack's most famous books and tells the story of an extraordinary dog named Buck. Max Baer grew up in Livermore and was a famous prize fighter. During his career, he won 68 fights, 52 of them by knockouts. In one of his early fights, he struck his opponent, Frank Campbell, so many times that he died the next day. Max was at his bedside with Campbell's wife and broke down when Campbell died. This haunted him for the rest of his life. He was charged with manslaughter but was acquitted of the charges. He gave the next succeeding purses to Campbell's family because he felt so bad about what had happened. In 1933, he beat Max Schmeling, a German fighter and a favorite of Adolf Hitler. In 1934, he became heavyweight champion of the world. Max Baer Park in Livermore is named after him. Edward Teller was the man who co-founded the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in 1952, along with E.O. Lawrence. During the Second World War, they both worked on the Manhattan Project, which designed the very first ever atomic bomb. Edward Teller is very well known all over the world and later worked on the first thermonuclear weapon and became known as the father of the hydrogen bomb. The Manhattan Project designed and built the very first atomic bomb. This is a picture of what the explosion would look like in the mushroom cloud that resulted. George Foreman was another famous boxer. Big George Foreman resided in Livermore for a few years in the early 70s. He rented a house on Mines Road and trained at the fitness center located in the Rincon Shopping Center near Maynissen Park. He had 5 sons and named them all George. In later years, he became famous again by promoting the George Foreman Grill. This is Randy Johnson. Randy was a graduate of Livermore High School and was a major league pitcher for 22 seasons. He was very tall, 6 foot 10 inches tall, which is why he was called the Big Unit. He played in 10 All-Star games and even pitched in the World Series. He was one of the very few pitchers who ever won over 300 games. Randy actually won 303 games in his career. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2015 and mentioned growing up in Livermore during his acceptance speech. And here's someone you might be more familiar with. His name is Andy Weir, and he grew up right here in Livermore. He went to Joe Mitchell School and Livermore High. His parents both worked at the lab, and when he was a teenager, he worked at Sandia during the summer, where he learned coding. After he grew up, he wrote a book that became a bestseller. The book was The Martian. So many people loved it that they decided to make a movie about it. The movie starred Matt Damon, and it was very popular and won a lot of awards. So now you know a little more about some of the people who called Livermore their home. Who knows? Maybe someday in the future one of you will become one of our famous people. It could happen. Hope to see you soon at the History Mobile.